Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, I hope you're doing well and everything is going well for you. Obviously, today on today's show, we have a great show planned for you, where in the second part of the program, we will be doing computer and technology news in whatever time we have left, where we'll be talking about, just anything technology related, just try to keep you up to date, caught up, and, just all around. It's a full-time job for us, so we can't imagine people with, with actual full-time jobs, how they can keep up with it. So we're going to do our best and try to, let you know what's happening in the world. But hey, in the first part of the show, though, that's where the real magic happens. We have none other than Beyond Security. Now, they've been on the show before a couple of years ago, far too long. Happy to have them back, and we are really looking forward to this. So obviously, we will be talking with the founder and CEO, and just talking about the current state of malware and all this kind of nasty stuff, because despite all the warnings and all the conversations we have about this, still entire cities are being taken offline. People keep getting their money stolen, and businesses keep getting their data stolen. This is a point that we can never drive home enough. So we're very happy that they would join us. But before we get started with that, first things first, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes, which will be up after the program. We'll have a link to our guest website, any articles that we talk about, any videos that we show, anything and everything will be at computeramerica.com. Also there, check out the live video portion. We are, of course, a radio program, but if you feel like you want to see myself or our guest website, then hey, check us out right there on our homepage, and of course at twitch.tv/Computer America. Last but not least, check out the articles. We have one with the Beyond Burger, the meat substitute. That was a lot of fun to do, and tons of other articles. Everyone, check that out. Okay, morning announcements done. Everyone, why don't we go ahead and just get started? So as I said before, joining us, he's been on the show before and happy to have him back, is none other than Mr. Aviram Jenik, and he is the CEO and founder of Beyond Security, here to talk to us all about cybersecurity, what it entails, and how to do it. So everyone, welcome onto the program, Avi, once again. Avi, how you doing?
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So, and of course, as usual, let's go ahead and kind of get some background on Beyond Security. How long has Beyond Security been in business, and what is your background, and what led you to start your own security firm?
Yeah, so Beyond Security has been around for quite a while. My co-founder and I started the company in 1999, so we've been doing this for over 20 years. And what we've been trying to do is essentially automate the security testing process. So think of it as, what if you can hire the most sophisticated hacker, the smartest hacker in the world, and have them work for you, right? Have them try to figure out where your weak points are. So our mission was to try and convert that hacker's brain into computer software, and that's what we're doing. We're selling tools and online services and other automated service type of offerings to test the security of any business from a tiny one that has a couple of people to Fortune 100s and government and military operations. So the goal here is really to kind of do what we're always discussing, which is find out how the hackers are getting in. And once you know that, it's becomes a lot easier to fix it.
Yeah, and just if you want to speak to, because obviously other security firms, they have, many people on retainer, and they'll be like, hey, we need you to do penetration testing. We need you to analyze someone's network and check out, see if there are any glaring flaws or anything that's not configured correctly or so on and so forth. Hackers seem to have their own toolkit, their own set of software that they'll have. And I guess they kind of automatically go through target to target to target and just analyze something. If anything pops up red, they click it and they go about their business. So because hackers are kind of automated, you think that Beyond Security's, I guess, kind of approach to automating some of the more basic ones, like I'm sure that you still have experts on staff and you're always looking for what's new and, how to adapt as the threats adapt, but you think that automation is a viable, I guess, kind of stopgap measure versus, having hundreds of people, kind of working for you?
I do, and I think it comes down to to a couple of points. So first of all, you need it done continuously. So there's a continuous component that needs to be done. Let's say that we decide to do the most thorough penetration test on your network today, right? So we find by some magic way, we find every single flaw and weakness on the network, and I compile a report for you with all that information. Now, in a week, that may or may not be relevant anymore, because if there's a new Microsoft vulnerability, if there's something that changed on your network, if there's a new employee, if you've moved something from point A to point B, if the security world finds something new, like we keep finding new classes of vulnerabilities. We never thought there'd be vulnerabilities in chips, and now Intel, has their own vulnerabilities that affect pretty much every company across the globe. So these things change. The world is changing. Your network is changing. The types of vulnerabilities are changing. So there's a continuous need to do this, which means that it's not only how good your pen test is today, it means how frequent you do those pen tests, because if you wait a year or more for the next pen test, it might not be relevant. But the second part is quality. So to really do an effective pen test, you have to have someone with an incredibly good set of tools and usually capabilities. And some companies can afford it. The price tag is attached to it in most cases. And our goal was to give you the as close as possible a solution that's comparable to a human being, a very, very, very sophisticated, very smart human hacker. So we've got these hackers on staff, and we continuously compare them to our tools. And I think we've done. I think we're pretty much there. So if some companies can't afford to have the Class A type pen test, and that's where we come in, because we can do it automatically at a much more reasonable price rate. And then I think pretty much everybody needs it done continuously. So even if you're doing let's call it a human-based pen test once in a while, you also need to complement it by a more automated way. But our goal, as I said, is to not compromise, is to not say, I can't do it with a human, so I'll settle for a machine. I do think that automating it does give you a lot of benefits and does give you often better results than a human being will. And you're right about how attackers do it. That is how they do it. They go in, we keep kind of giving these old analogies, right? Of if you can go through the door, go through the window. But that's kind of how security attacks are really actually done, right? I mean, you remember in a Mission Impossible where they talk about the CIA vault that cannot be penetrated, right? So they speak about all the 10 different types of security that the vault has with the biometrics and the sound sensitivity and all these kind of things. So you can put in 10 different like security barriers, and then somebody will go through not somebody, Tom Cruise, obviously. You need somebody sophisticated, but they'll go through the air vent, right?
Right.
So what attackers do is exactly that. They'll try to map, where and security systems have a lot more air vents and doors and windows and a lot of different ways to come in, because that's what computers do. They communicate.
Yeah.
So every time a computer communicates, that's a way in for an attacker. And that's exactly how they will do it. They will automatically search for kind of a hidden way to come in, not necessarily through the front door. And that is why it's usually very, very effective to kind of do the same thing and automatically try to find where your issues are. And as I said, it's not just 3D, it's 4D. There's a timeline component to it. So your network might be really, really secure today, but it might have a huge hole tomorrow. Again, either because you've changed something, maybe accidentally, or one of your employees did, or because the world has changed, because we know something we didn't know yesterday.
Yeah, and more to your point too. It's fun, and this is something that you said, kind of with your first point, where once the security community knows about something, then it's much easier to defend against it. When people know attacks, but it seems like that's actually part of the problem with a lot of these high-profile attacks. And I'm currently thinking, actually, and I'm glad that you mentioned Spectre and Meltdown for Intel. Those have been vulnerabilities that were that go back 10 years, and then there was another one with with WPA, not WPA2, but WPA, that affected every device connected to Wi-Fi, and that affected every device going back 15 years or 20 years or something like that. Right. These vulnerabilities are still being found decades after they're there. And one instance I wanted to kind of bring in, kind of see if you could have helped the city of Baltimore, because that was a situation where they had a hack that had been, and I currently forget the exact name of the ransomware that they used, but they changed it just a little bit, and they took down Baltimore. And this is not even a year after Atlanta had to deal with all of their hacking problems. Major cities, this is not the first time they've been hit, and yet we see Baltimore kind of falling victim to this. What solution is there when even old hacks can be tweaked just a little bit? And I guess they aren't even in large cities who, they're not a bank, they're not a military installation, whatever. They don't seem like high priority, but they can still fall victim to this. What solutions do large, I guess, outdated systems have against hacks?
Right. No, that's a great question, and it shows how much the security world has changed, right? So if a discussion like this a year or two or three ago would have been how if I'm an organization, how do I not get attacked, right? Mm-hmm. Or how do I make sure the attack doesn't succeed, right? This is mostly what we'd be talking about, and now. What you were to kind of paraphrase, not put words in your mouth, but to kind of paraphrase maybe the conclusion here. Everybody gets attacked, right? And then, as you can see, almost everybody gets breached at the end, right? So the attacks are inevitable. We know this because I think everyone on this planet right now gets phishing emails sent to them, and it's very visible. There's attacks now. And then some of the largest organizations, and you've mentioned Intel, hotel chains, credit bureaus, right, cities, mm-hmm. They are all, they all fall victim to these attacks. So I would say, by the way, I think it's a maturity thing. I see it, maybe it's, I'm a glass half full kind of person.
Right.
But I think there's good points to that because think about you've got basketball teams, right? And then they're on winning streaks, right?
Right.
And when that happens, you always hear from the coach that they kind of want the win. I mean, the coaches, the ones that are honest say, we want a winning streak to end because when you're in a winning streak, every game has so much more pressure and it's just so much harder. Whereas if you break the winning streak, it's just another game, and it becomes easier to win. So that's kind of what we've done with security. So before we looked at it as a binary thing, right? So my organization either gets hacked or does not get hacked, and my goal is to keep it at not hacked, right? That's kind of a winning streak. That's really, really hard to do. That means if you mess up once with anything, that you go to zero, right? You go from the 1 to 0, and it's a little unfair because of everything we just talked about, right? So I think the one good thing that may have happened with these obviously not so good attacks is we've redefined the goal. The goal is not necessarily to never get attacked or not be a target or not have a successful breach, but try to limit them, right? So you're allowed to lose a game, but try to keep your record as high as possible so you can go to the playoffs, right? And you can be number one in the league and still have losses. And that's kind of the point we're trying to make with security is it's a normal way to look, we do this in the business world in every other thing, right? We never say you're not allowed to fail doing X. But we kind of did that with security. We said you're not allowed to fail with security, just not allowed. Right. And now we're saying no, you are allowed. So I think my point is, and again, it's the good news about this is I don't think organizations are expected to not be hacked ever. What they're expected to is limit those attacks, and that's what we need to do. We need to improve our security, right? We need to and this is why we do like security testing, and this is why we try to check for known and unknown vulnerabilities. Try to manage those risks like you would any other risk in your business, right, or in your life, for that matter. And try just make it better. So find the most cost-effective way you can improve your security and try to do that. So this is the good thing that I see about how the world has changed. And it has practical reasons as well. I mean, if your organization is a little more secure than the other one, mm-hmm. because we're talking about these automated attacks, they might not attack you. There's a lower hanging fruit somewhere else, which is bad for them, but.
Yeah, it's that old adage, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than your friend. Of course
exactly. Even though that makes it sound a little brutal, but I think that's true. I mean, make it a little hard. We always talk about security in layers. Mm-hmm. So adding layers is always a good idea because, if you can't defend on this layer, defend on the second layer. And, I'm a big fan of cost effectiveness, right? So find the solution that will be most cost effective in terms of security. So cost something that's reasonable and then give you a really effective, something you can measure and an effective improvement and do it. And it's not going to be the perfect thing, but that's fine. We took perfect off the table now.
So yeah, of course, no one's perfect. It's just that, when we do our computer and technology news segment, we cover, large scale hackings and things like that. Never in my memory have we reported on someone who said, here's how they were hacked. It was Tom Cruise breaking in, and it was, this massive spy operation. The news articles that come up with millions of passwords and credentials and user information, the reason that they come into the news is, like, let's just take for instance last week, G Suite. Someone found a cache of about 5 million enterprise customers, user credentials, username, passwords stored in plain text on a server that was, storing them. I mean, right. It seems like something so basic, like, there's companies such as yourself, there's programs such as myself that, seem to drill this into our audience's head as much as we can, your customers' head as much as we can. But even if a company is like Google can misconfigure something, is this the current state where it's just more of, it's not super secret spy work that we're trying to do here. It's awareness and just, cover your basics and you're going to be okay. What is the state of cybersecurity as you see it?
Right. So that is a great example. So I think there's two possible takeaways from it. I think the wrong takeaway would be to say, well, it happens to Google, so I'm okay, right? So, right. But another way I think that's going to prevail, and we're already seeing it, is sort of the checklist and the let's call it what I call a peer-to-peer checklist thing, where today, if you're a B2B business, if you're providing services to other businesses, it's more and more common to have them send you a security questionnaire and say, here's a checklist. Are you doing all these things? And in some cases to do a little pen test, again, not something really thorough, but basically to see not just are you doing the basics, but have you given it some thought? Like what have you done in terms of security? So the fact, and this is really interesting, the fact that the companies start asking each other, what are you doing in terms of security? Show us that you've done this checklist. To me, that shows that we've gone from, so in the past, they wouldn't. They would say, I put blind faith in you that you will not get hacked, right? Because of the binary, that 0-1 kind of thing, which we now know not to be true. Like if you ever slept in a Marriott hotel and gave them your information, then it's out there. They've been breached. And if you're a business, you cannot say, okay, I'm not going to do business with Marriott because they had a breach, or I'm not going to buy Intel chips because they had a security vulnerability. What you can do instead, though, is you can say, and obviously, even more so for the little guys, right? So what you can say instead is, okay, show me what you're doing. Here's a questionnaire. Here's a set of questions. I want to make sure you've gone through them. It's not even a pass-fail kind of thing. So it's not even, right. You're not using the right antivirus. I'm going to fail you. I'm not going to do business with you. It's more like, show me, what you've done in security. Show me that you've given it some thought, that you're, encrypting your databases, that you're, doing all the right proper things. And then, look, stuff happens, right? So It may not work the way we thought. You may your example with Google is a really good one. It might change. You might not be implementing everything you're telling me. You might think you're doing it and you're doing it wrong. That's okay for now, but hey, let's raise the bar and make sure you're at least thinking about these things. You're at least taking some security measures. I like it. It has, in the business world, when these things start, the bar constantly goes up, which I think is a good thing for everybody. So I think in light of, I think there's going to be two sort of contradictory directions now. One is we're going to see more and more of these attacks, right? They're going to be bigger and bigger because just, I think they're inevitable. It's just a numbers game, just a probability. There's so many Tom Cruises trying to break into so many vaults. Some of them will be broken into, and we'll be shocked, right, when that happens. But it's just probability. And on the other hand, I think the average. So this is an extreme, okay. But I think the average will go up considerably as we do these checklists, as we do this peer-to-peer. Hey, before I do business with you, I want to see that your security is okay, is reasonable. And that will bring everybody up. That will kind of change the standard. So today we can no longer I don't think there's a business on earth who says, I'm not going to do security. Who cares? Not a big deal, right? So as the bar goes up, as we do more and more of these checklists, as we get, by the way, we get better. Our tools do get better for both known and unknown vulnerabilities. They get better, they get cheaper, they get better coverage. So, this company like ours, vendors like ours, trying to help the ecosystem by making it more effective and easier to do these kind of things. But I'm optimistic about where we're going. So I think my point is we'll start to see the average security go up, even though in the edges we'll be always shocked by these amazing things that happen. But that's how the world works.
Right. Yeah. No. And I think just that the basic just the basic raising of the bar, as you said, is going to help a lot of people. But hey, I've heard it said before, it's an arms race. It's the better the security gets, the better the hackers get, and it's a constant game of kind of cat and mouse. But this is something I wanted to to you kind of to speak towards. You put a lot of faith in automation. Luckily, with machine learning and artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it, whatever the proper industry term is, it looks like automation is getting better and better. We're feeding it more data. These computer systems are getting more sophisticated. And hey, automation seems to be the way of the future for not just security, but really almost everything. So I wanted to see what you thought was the future of security, because you mentioned, kind of automated tools and still utilizing people. But where does security kind of go from here? Because I feel like we've really hit a lot of the, a lot of the kind of breaking points we've kind of hit, and now it's to the fact that computers can tell the difference between someone who types 10,000 passwords a minute and someone who's sitting at their computer and makes a typo. I mean,
right.
Where does cybersecurity go from here?
Right. No, that's a great question. So first of all, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's an arms race, and we're the funny maybe period in this arms race where the bad guys are slightly ahead, right? So look, the game's not over, right? I mean, we're still early,
right.
But I remember a time when the good guys were way ahead, when it was pretty hard for a bad guy to get in, and we would have those. I don't know if you remember the time. We would have those challenges where we'd say, I'm going to give you 10,000 or 100,000 or $1 million if you break into this thing, and we almost don't do it, or we do it knowing that we're going to give the prize to somebody. So the bad guys are ahead, yes.
Right.
But I think the answer, I think you nailed it, and the answer is automation, in my opinion. I think they're a little bit ahead because we're relying on a lot of people, and it's hard. Security is hard for people. We've got people is a limited resource, right? It's kind of like moving from writing books by hand to a printing press, right? So we're kind of in that transition period where we still have sort of people, let's call it people servicing the printing press. Like the printing press can't work today without people around it. That's kind of how we do security today. We have people doing stuff so the machine will run. But to me, that says we're really, really close to the next stage, which is, and everything you said is correct. Like we the password thing is fixed. We know how to make sure people like the Bank of America, you can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as your password, knowing that nobody will guess it because they're very, very smart, knowing if if somebody's trying to brute force your account, or even if somebody has your password but they're logging in from somewhere weird, right, that they shouldn't be. So we have answers to this. We just haven't deployed it everywhere. Some things, we have to figure out. I think machine learning will really come into this in full strength. So yeah, I do believe that's the answer. I believe we're kind of almost there. I mean, putting the Google, the Google you mentioned aside, other than that, Google is doing pretty well, and they have to. I mean, they're doing a lot of stuff on the internet, right? I mean, you're logging into their services, I would say, hundreds of times a day. Some of these logins that you do are extremely valuable, right? You might be authenticating through Google to other websites, and I'm saying Google. You can think about Facebook or other popular websites, and they almost don't get hacked. I mean, if you take the number of logins or transactions and see how many of them are unauthorized, the numbers are like, tiny. They're almost, it's almost zero, right? So these guys have figured it out. They've figured it out not by putting, 50 million people looking at logs, right, and trying to fight attackers. They did it with smart machine learning, with automation, and I think this is where it'll go to towards the smaller organizations in the near future.
Yeah, and it definitely has to start working its way down and making everyone more secure. Avi, if you really don't mind, we are, I definitely want to talk about the different solutions that Beyond Security kind of offers. So if you could, kind of give us a rundown. We're about to come up to the break. The music should be starting right there. Would you mind saying past the commercials and we can kind of continue on?
Sounds great.
All right, perfect. All right, so everyone, we have been talking to Beyond Security. Of course, we've been talking to Mr. Avi Jenik, and CEO and founder of Beyond Security. Everyone, we'll be right back. More Computer America right after this. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And for anyone out there who missed any part of our conversation so far with Beyond Security, wherever podcasts are heard, please check out Computer America. You should be able to search it. We'll pop right up, and it will be today's show and every other show time shifted. So, hey, if you want to listen to us on your commute, in the car, whatever, if you can't tune in live, hey, check out the podcast. Now we continue on, and Avi has so graciously agreed to, kind of continue on with us. So again, and this is Avi Jenik. He is the CEO and founder of Beyond Security, very knowledgeable in talking about security, and this has been a great conversation so far. But like I said before the break, I did want to, kind of get into this idea that obviously not everyone can pay for that, that grade A pen testing with, people, or even if they do pay for it, they still need to, I guess, kind of incrementally, kind of substitute it with, think of it like booster shots, just another way to increase your security. And especially if you're a business that handles any kind of payment information or any kind of personal data, hey, the price of not doing this is going to start going up because, now you start getting fines by the FCC and things like that. So this is important. This is important for, in a lot of ways. So Avi, if you would, we've been checking out your website here on the video portion. You have 4 different solutions here, on your website. And if you wanted to go ahead and start with the network vulnerability assessment and management, just kind of walk us through each one of your, each one of your products and, kind of how it works. Avi, are you there? I'm sorry.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Go
I
ahead.
hit the wrong button by mistake. So starting with vulnerability assessment, I'll just say that as I say before, our goal is finding known and unknown vulnerabilities, but doing it automatically. So the analogy is always, if I was to take a really, really smart hacker, what would he find or she, and then can we do it automatically in a way that does not require an expert to run the program, right? So from the vulnerability assessment portion, we have a network and web application vulnerability assessments. Those typically look for known vulnerabilities. I would say that known or known classes of vulnerabilities. So on the web application part, we'll find things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, these kind of types of attacks. And on the network vulnerability part, pretty much any vulnerability that we know that can enable an attacker to gain access or gain information, or any weakness that we can see. Since these tools and these are combined, so web and network together, they're extremely scalable. We can test hundreds of thousands of nodes on a very distributed network with central management, or we can test just a couple of nodes on the internet and just about anything in between. And we can deploy it to a virtual appliance, a physical appliance, an AWS machine. So the idea is we can really test everything and from anywhere. And our goal is to provide an automated report. So this will be a lot like a pen test report that you would get from a penetration tester, where we'll try to point out the weaknesses and how to fix them. And this is, I keep emphasizing this, but it's, I think it's important. Our goal is not to point out all weaknesses in an organization. Our point is to tell you how to fix them. So if we're unable to give you very, very simple solutions, and there almost always are, if we cannot tell you what to do to fix those problems, then we really haven't done our job. And since this is automatic, you can run it monthly, quarterly, weekly, or daily. And we've got some customers testing the entire networks on a daily basis with a lot of types of reports. And those are reports that, again, are not intended necessarily to somebody who knows security really well. It could be network operator, someone who's responsible for the server, or just a manager trying to find out, how am I doing and what are, the biggest things I should fix. And again, the goal, is not to do a check and say, everything here is perfect. I don't know that this thing exists.
Yeah.
The point is to say, if you take care of these two things, you're going to jump up. Your security is going to improve so much.
So
that's on the vulnerability assessment angle. Moving into the more, let's call them unknown vulnerabilities, we've got tools that check source code for vulnerabilities. That is our B-Source product. And the idea here is to empower developers. So this tool is mostly geared toward developers. It can run on an organizational level or on a single developer kind of installation. We check the source code while they're developing, so you can check a third party, somebody, if you're outsourcing your development, you can check their source code, or if you've got your own developers, they can change their source code, or you can check their source code when we're done with development. And again, the problems here are obviously we look for security problems, but the solutions are, explain a way that makes sense for developers. So we'll say, if you've coded it correctly, because at the end of the day, when we say vulnerability, and to be a little blunt, right? If we say vulnerability, we mean a developer has done something wrong. They should not have, coded this thing the way that they coded, and then opens up a security vulnerability. With source code analysis, we try to find that really, really close to the development part before it gets out, before it's published or used in production environments. And with BSource, we'll sort of try to guide them towards the how they should have done it better. So not just, hey, this line is wrong, but hey, you should not do these kind of things. That's not proper. So it's kind of to help them secure their code.
Right.
Another piece with unknown vulnerabilities is our Storm product, and that does dynamic security testing without the source code. We call that a black box test. So the idea here is to say you have an application. So examples could be a web API you're exposing to the internet, or an application you've developed, and it could be hardware, software, anything that somebody wrote and is out there being accessed by somebody, being used. And again, web API is probably the most popular thing right now for security testing. And what Storm does is it does not require the source code. So we can test, we call it from the outside, but we do look for unknown vulnerabilities because this is your software. Nobody has seen it before. We don't know what kind of vulnerabilities might be on it. So that's not usually something you test with a vulnerability assessment tool. Vulnerability assessment tools look for known vulnerabilities. We don't yet know what kind of vulnerabilities are there. And it's a very, very thorough way to do testing and find possible weaknesses. So we might say, if you go live with this web API, here's what a potential attacker can do if they send this strange request. Your software, will be hacked, or we'll find a way around it. So we pretty much want to cover anything from known and unknown vulnerabilities, from the network to the web application and other applications, to sort of cover any need for security testing. And again, I want to emphasize all this is with automated tools. So in all cases, these are very simple point and click tools that where we have some very the Department of Defense and some of the largest companies in the world use our products by security experts. But on the other hand of the spectrum, we've got some very unsophisticated customers and ones that are not security experts but need to do it or want to do it. And all these tools can be run by developers, network admins, even managers with minimal technical experience.
And to be perfectly clear, this is not anti-malware. This is not a firewall. This is not any kind of thing. This is to I guess point people in the right direction that your security could be better if XYZ were to happen. Like, you don't actively swat down would-be hackers.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. So this goes to the security layers philosophy. So I think firewalls are great, and anti-malware are those are great, and antiviruses are great, and you can have multiple layers, and any one of those things are good, and if you can have all of them, that's fantastic, right? But where we come in though is to test, to check, and say here are despite everything you've got, here's how I got in. And we'll softly recommend a solution. It's not a commercial solution. We'll say, change the configuration or tweak this thing. But you can also use a commercial product. Can buy a commercial product to try and fix that hole, and then retest again. Make sure they do fix it. So you're right. We don't stop or try to block hackers. We are the hackers, right? We're the ones that kind of tell you where you're still exposed and what you should focus on next. I would say we'll give you sort of the one or two or three things you should do next that'll have the most impact on your security in sort of a numbered list, right? So you can choose how much of it do you want to do this month or this year, and what's left for later. In my book, if your security today is better than yesterday, it's a good day. You've done well. So I don't think the goal should ever be let's fix everything. The goal should be what's the most important thing, and can we address it in a reasonable time frame so we're a little bit more secure?
Yeah, and again, between all the different applications that you have here, I mean, a lot. I feel like a broken record, but a lot of the vulnerabilities that you're kind of pointing out, those are the first ones that hackers look for, if they can do a SQL injection, if they can, if they see something that's not configured right, if they have an SSL certificate that's not, that can be tampered with. I mean, these very basic things, it's, I'm glad that you were able to do it, kind of in an automated way, because I've heard so many other people that come on the show that do this for a living, and they're like, I have to waste so much time in that this is, I look for the exact same things, and I look for it over and over and over again. Do you find that security professionals, like you mentioned, that this could be run by network admins or anyone who really wants to? Do you have tools that you kind of give to pen testers, or are your tools used by third parties to help companies, I guess?
Yeah, no, the answer is both. So every pen tester in the world will use a tool like ours, and a lot of them do use ours. And the reason is just the scale that we can give them, and let's say how efficient it is to run with a tool like ours, and obviously the results that they get, the human pen testers might feed into that. That'll be, I don't know, 60-70% of what they're doing, and they'll augment it with some manual skills that they have, or some of them combine more than one tool, and et cetera. So yes, definitely our tool is used by pen testers. All of our tools are used by very, very, sometimes very, very sophisticated security professionals. But this is like, I think, maybe to explain it better, this will be like a really good high quality hammer, right? So you can use, if you're inexperienced, you can still use it to hang, pictures on the wall. If you're a carpenter, you still need a hammer. That's the fact that you're a professional and do this every day, that doesn't mean you don't need a tool. It just needs, maybe you're using it better, maybe you're more efficient with it. So we're that hammer, maybe a little more,
I got you.
Slightly more automated maybe than a hammer, but yes, it's used by both experienced and inexperienced users.
I got you. So, and again, so it's B-Secure, B-Storm, and B-Source are the three different ones that that you kind of mentioned here. And hey, so obviously, I've already taken way more of your time than I was kind of planning to. Did we miss anything before we kind of wrap up? And were there any topics that you really wanted to cover that maybe we didn't touch on?
Well, I'm sure we missed a lot. It's it's an ocean of interesting things out there, but nothing specifically come to mind. I think I enjoyed the conversation, and I'm glad we got to cover what we covered.
Yeah, so do I. So, and obviously, I'll let you have the last word. If people want to find out more about Beyond Security or any of your products or anything that we talked about here today, where's the best place to go?
Right. So as I said, we do cater to organizations of all sizes, from very small to very large, and cover almost anything that has to do with security testing, vulnerability assessment, pen testing. There's a lot of names for these things, and they all mean testing a security posture. So to find out more, please come to beyondsecurity.com and just contact us, and not to get confused with Beyond Meat, which I think you're going to cover a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, well, that was actually a very fun, and just, hey, you mentioned it. Have you ever tried Beyond Meat or any of these, or Impossible Burger or any of these substitutes?
You know what? I have not. Luckily at this point, the dilemma is not really. So I'm a meat person. I'm an extremist, I would say, in that aspect. And I think luckily for me, people who've tried it are saying it's still not as good as the real thing. It's getting close, but it's not as good. I think my dilemma will be when it's as good as real meat, when it's indistinguishable from a real steak. I'm not sure what I'll do there, because there's obviously, for me, there's a psychological component, but
Right.
it gets harder and harder when the borders kind of disappear between them. So I have not tried, but I'm very, very curious on where this industry is going to.
Let me kind of spoil this for you. So the article that we wrote, for us, it was like, think of the burger meat quality of Burger King, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, whatever fast food restaurant. If you were to swap the patty out with any of those, any of that tier burger, it will be indistinguishable. But if you go anything higher, like a sit-down restaurant, like a Chili's, or like anything $10 and up, you'll notice a difference. Anything below that, you won't notice a difference. So I feel like that's a good start, because hey, that's a lot of burgers that you could have replaced with plants. So hey,
I agree. It's a good start. And then let's remember we were like just a few years ago, right? So a few years ago, it was not even that close.
Yeah.
So they're obviously making progress, and a lot of people are betting money on them, and probably for good reasons. So but it is going to be an interesting question. What happens when it is the same quality as a high-end steak restaurant? Will we just switch from? I mean, I do think there's a psychological component here.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to know where my meat comes from, right? Which is why we go for free-range chicken and these kind of thing, even though the egg is the same.
Right.
I wonder, how things will develop in long term. It's, we definitely live in interesting times, though.
It was hard to convince my parents to eat it, because they were like, they were scarred by Soylent Green, that movie. So
you know what, that is true. I wonder if that movie put the whole industry back like 20 years.
Hey, it's due for a remake, I think. But by the way, just as a personal side, I really, really, really dig your new logo and your new look for your website for Beyond Security. It looks great. So, Avi, I will say thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and this has been a great conversation, and it was a lot of fun. We need to have you on sooner than 2 years, but hey, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'd love it. Thanks so much, Ben.
All right, have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, everyone, and there he goes. So obviously that was a lot of fun. If you want to check that out, again, the podcast, that will have everything right there. If you want to listen to it again, or if you miss any part of it, go check that out. And of course, we'll have backups on our website, computeramerica.com. Backup. They're important. We didn't mention them once. Everyone should have a backup. It's great for security. Now, with that being said, everyone, let's go ahead and do computer and technology news. And that's brought to you by Computer America. Obviously, we have just a handful of minutes left. Let's make the most of it. Everyone, computer and technology news. Here we go. Let's talk about this one, and how about we discuss. All right, so this one is a story that was actually brought to me by one of my family members. I kind of brushed it off because my understanding was that China was making, well, I don't want to say making drones. China is obviously making drones. China makes a lot of our technology, from phones and whatever. Manufacturing happens overseas. That's just the way of things. There was an article that DJI, one of the largest manufacturers of drones for even the consumer space, but definitely in business, corporation, film, that kind of thing. DJI is one of the most well-known drone manufacturers out there. And yeah, this is when I had heard the story originally, it was along the lines of DJI drones were relaying information back to Chinese servers on videos, photographs, location data, anything that could be scraped was being copied and sent overseas. And in my mind, that really wasn't a big deal, because to me, it's like if you have a drone, just like in the United States, if you have a United States-based product and it's made here, and you need to have some kind of web capability, to be able to log in through an app, to have an API, to be able to store your photos online, to, provide any kind of provide any kind of after support, you're going to need a server or somewhere to store the data and communicate with drones. If it's a US-based product, then those servers will probably be in the US. If it's a Chinese-made drone, then the servers will probably be in China. I completely brushed it off. I didn't think it was that big a deal because, hey, the servers have to be somewhere. Why not China, where these drones are made? Well, enter this article. That's my understanding. I didn't really cover it on the show before, but now I see this title and I'm like, maybe it's time to sit up and take notice. Drone, and the title of this article, this is from NPR, by Mr. Brian Naylor, saying that we're not being paranoid. That was a quote. U.S. warns of spy dangers of Chinese-made drones. So, like I said, I just kind of chalked it up to people being paranoid. Looks like that might not be the case. So obviously drones have becoming an increasingly popular tool for industry and government. Electric utilities use them to inspect transmission lines. Oil companies fly them over pipelines. The Interior Department even deploying them to track lava flows at Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. But the Department of Homeland Security is warning that drones manufactured by Chinese companies could pose security risk, and that's my problem, could. I hate that word. Could should be stricken from any threat report. It's either does or doesn't, should or shouldn't. So could. Ew. Anyways, they could pose a risk, including the data that they gather could be stolen. And by the way, they had a video posted on the Department of the Department of Homeland Security posted a video saying that drones in general pose multiple threats, including their potential for terrorism, mass casualty incidents, interference with air traffic, as well as corporate espionage and invasions of privacy. All of those are well documented, except for one. So obviously, terrorism, you strap some kind of explosive on it, and suddenly you have a device made for terrorism. Horrible, horrible, horrible. That's why law enforcement needs to come up with ways to take down drones. I get that. Any drone has that capability. It's not just Chinese-made drones. Mass casualty incidents. Think about, this could, kind of go hand in hand with interference with air traffic. This is any drone whatsoever, Chinese-made or not. It's just that the majority of drones are being made by DJI or many other Chinese companies. So mass casualty, interference with air traffic, obviously, if a goose can take down a plane, then a drone can take down a plane. And then the next one, let's just say invasions of privacy. That's been a problem ever since drones first hit the consumer hand, let alone the corporate hands. Fly it up over your neighbor's fence, fly it into their yard, and film your neighbor through their window. Invasion of privacy, totally illegal, shouldn't be done. Happens all the time, unfortunately. And again, this is why they need to figure out ways to take them down effectively. And hey, just don't do that. This one though, corporate espionage. That's something that the Chinese are very well known for stealing intellectual property. That I have no doubt about. And maybe as it relates to filming pipelines or filming, anything else U.S. infrastructure, maybe they could take the videos of that and be able to infer something. But I don't know. I don't know how many corporate secrets are really stored on a drone. Usually just video and location data. Anyways, most drones bought in the U.S. are manufactured in China, and most of those drones are made by DJI Technology. A cybersecurity researcher, Lanier Watkins, cyber research scientist at the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute, said his team discovered vulnerabilities in DJI's drones, which, in my mind, not a big deal, as we just spent the whole first part of the show talking about. Anything can have a vulnerability. It's not nefarious. It's just the way technology is made, with security as an afterthought. He said that, quote, "We could pull information down and upload information on a flying drone. You could also hijack the drone." Really? Not that hard. If you are given the proper tools, like, hey, it's kind of like a security researcher. It's kind of like a security researcher to me saying, if we got root access, we could do whatever we want with this computer. It's like, no duh. That's the point of the hack. So I don't know. I'm still skeptical of this. So in a statement, DJI, of course, says that they work very closely with all the U.S. government agencies, and they are working to make sure everything is secure and on the up and up. In my mind, this is still kind of a non-issue. Yes, drones are dangerous, but just for the fact of what drones are, it's not because they're DJI, not because they're Chinese. It's because drones are dangerous. Everyone, the music means that we're done here. Thank you so much for tuning into the program today. A lot of fun here, and obviously a huge shout out to our guest Beyond Security for joining us on the program. If you would like to check out any more of the show, check out some of the articles, the videos, the past shows, computeramerica.com. Check it out. Check out the podcast. And one last time, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you. And we look forward to talking to you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.